The sound of a suitcase zipper cut through the afternoon silence like a knife. Naomi stood frozen in the doorway of their bedroom, her grocery bag still clutched in both hands, watching her husband Trevor methodically fold his clothes into the expensive leather luggage set she'd bought him for Christmas. He didn't even look up when she entered. Didn't startle. Didn't explain. He just kept packing, his movements calm and practiced, like he'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in his mind. Trevor? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. He finally glanced up, and the coldness in his eyes made her stomach drop. This wasn't the man who'd promised to love her forever 3 years ago. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face. "We need to talk," he said, returning his attention to the suitcase. Naomi set the grocery bags down slowly, her mind racing. She'd suspected something was wrong for months. The late nights at work. The secretive phone calls. The way he'd pull away when she tried to kiss him. But seeing it happen, watching him actually leave, felt surreal. "I'm moving out," Trevor continued, his voice flat and businesslike. "I've already spoken to a lawyer about divorce papers. You'll receive them next week." "What?" The word barely made it past her lips. "What? Is there someone else?" Trevor laughed, and the sound held no warmth. "Yes, there's someone else. Her name is Vanessa Hartley. Maybe you've heard of her? She owns the Hartley Boutique Hotels. 5 properties across the state." He said it like he was bragging. Like he'd won some kind of prize. Naomi's hands trembled. "How long?" 8 months. He zipped the suitcase closed with a sharp motion. "And before you start crying and begging, let me save you the trouble. This isn't about you doing anything wrong. It's about me finally being with someone on my level." The words hit like physical blows. "Your level?" Trevor turned to face her fully now, and his expression was pure contempt. "Look at us, Naomi. Look at this place." He gestured around their modest 2-bedroom apartment. "I'm 35 years old and I'm living like I'm fresh out of college. You work as a freelance consultant, whatever that means. We shop at discount stores. We drive a 10-year-old sedan. Vanessa has a penthouse downtown. She wears designer clothes. She understands ambition." Naomi felt something crack inside her chest, but she kept her face neutral. "So this is about money? This is about potential. Vision. A future that's actually worth something." Trevor picked up his suitcase and briefcase. "Vanessa sees my value. She's already introduced me to people who can advance my career. In 6 months with her, I've made more connections than in 3 years with you." He walked past her toward the door, then paused. "I'll come back for the rest of my things next week. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets. Though honestly, there isn't much to divide, is there?" Naomi stood perfectly still, watching him. "Is that everything you wanted to say?" Trevor looked surprised that she wasn't crying or pleading. "I guess so. Look, you'll be fine. You're good at that quiet, simple life thing. Find someone who wants that. I need more." "More?" Naomi repeated softly. "Yeah, more." He opened the apartment door. "Goodbye, Naomi. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." The door closed behind him with a soft click. Naomi stood in the entryway for a long moment, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. She heard the elevator ding. Heard the doors close. Then silence. She walked to the window and looked down at the parking lot 3 floors below. She watched Trevor load his suitcase into his car, the red Audi that Vanessa had probably bought him. He pulled out of the parking spot without looking back at the building. Without a moment of hesitation. And then Naomi smiled. It wasn't a sad smile or a bitter smile. It was the smile of someone who just confirmed exactly what she needed to know. She pulled her phone from her pocket and opened her contacts, scrolling past Trevor, and Mom, and book club friends, until she reached a name she hadn't called in 5 years, Robert Chen Legal. She pressed dial. "Robert Chen's office," a professional voice answered. "This is Nora Mitchell," Naomi said, using her real name for the first time in years. "I need to schedule a meeting with Robert immediately. Tell him the experiment is over and it's time to come home." There was a brief pause, then the assistant's voice returned, filled with barely contained excitement. "Ms. Mitchell. Of course. Mr. Chin has kept your schedule open for this exact call. He can see you tomorrow morning at 9. Should I arrange for your car?" "Yes, please. Send it to my current address. I'll text you the location." Naomi looked around the modest apartment one last time. "And contact my property manager. Tell her I'll be moving back into the penthouse this week." "Right away, Ms. Mitchell. It's good to have you back." Naomi ended the call and stood at the window, watching the sun set over the city. Somewhere out there, Trevor was probably celebrating with Vanessa, toasting to his new life with his wealthy hotel owner. He had no idea that the woman he'd just abandoned for a few boutique hotels was worth more than Vanessa could ever dream of. He had no idea that Naomi Parker, the quiet freelance consultant, was actually Nora Mitchell, founder and CEO of Technova Solutions, one of the fastest-growing software companies in the country. A company currently valued at $1.2 billion. He had no idea that the simple life he'd mocked was a carefully constructed test. A way to see if anyone could love her for herself, not her money. And he just failed spectacularly. Naomi pulled the grocery bags into the kitchen and started putting items away, her movements automatic. Milk in the fridge. Bread on the counter. She felt strangely calm. Almost peaceful. For 5 years, she'd wondered if she'd made the right choice in hiding her identity. If it was fair to Trevor. If maybe, just maybe, he really loved her and would stand by her regardless of wealth. Now she knew. Her phone buzzed with a text from her business manager. Saw you called Robert. Does this mean what I think it means? Naomi typed back, yes. Time to stop playing small. Schedule board meetings for next week. We have work to do. Another text came through, this one from her sister Claire, the only family member who knew the truth. Are you okay? Naomi looked around the apartment where she'd lived as someone else for 5 years. At the discount furniture and bargain decorations. At the life she'd built to test someone's love. At the space Trevor had just abandoned without a second thought. She texted back, I'm perfect. The truth always sets you free. Architected character backstory revealing identity and relationship origins. Now I need to write chapter 2, which reveals Naomi's backstory and her real identity. This should be about 1,000 words and explain why she created the fake identity, how she met Trevor, and what she's been doing for the past 5 years. I need to make this logical and reasonable while keeping the language simple. 5 years earlier, Nora Mitchell had stood in the conference room of her company headquarters, looking out at the city skyline. She was 30 years old and had just closed a deal that made her company worth $800 million. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. The reporters are waiting, her publicist had said. They want quotes about being the youngest black female tech CEO to reach this valuation. Nora had given them their quotes. She'd smiled for the cameras. She'd said all the right things about innovation and perseverance and breaking barriers. And then she'd gone home to her empty penthouse and realized she had no one to share it with. Her last relationship had ended 6 months earlier when she discovered her boyfriend was selling information about her company to competitors. Before that, there'd been the man who proposed after 3 dates, clearly more interested in her bank account than her personality. And before that, the string of people who saw dollar signs instead of a person. She'd built an empire, but she was completely alone. That's when she'd gotten the idea. It was crazy. Impractical. Maybe even dishonest. But she couldn't shake it. What if she could just disappear for a while? Not forever. Just long enough to meet someone who could love her for herself. She discussed it with her sister Claire over wine one night. I want to know if it's possible, Nora had said. If someone can actually love me without the money clouding everything. Claire had looked skeptical. And you think pretending to be someone else is the answer? I think it's the only way to know for sure. It had taken 3 months to set up. She'd legally changed her name to Naomi Parker through sealed court records. She'd created a work history as a freelance business consultant, which wasn't entirely a lie since she did consult for her own companies under various pseudonyms. She'd rented a modest apartment in a different part of the city. She'd bought regular clothes from department stores instead of designer boutiques. And she'd stepped into a completely different life. The first year was an adjustment. She still ran Technova, but she did it remotely through encrypted channels and video calls where she controlled the background. Her executive team thought she was working from a home office. No one questioned it. She'd always been hands-on but private. She joined a book club at the local library. Started shopping at neighborhood stores. Made friends with her neighbors. For the first time in her adult life, people treated her normally. They didn't Google her. Didn't ask about her company. Didn't want anything except genuine friendship. It was liberating and lonely at the same time. She'd met Trevor at the book club 18 months into her experiment. He was charming and attractive with an easy smile and quick wit. He worked in medical equipment sales and seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts about the books they read. He asked about her day. Remembered small details. Made her laugh. They'd started dating and Nora had felt hopeful. Trevor didn't care that she lived in a small apartment or drove an old car. He seemed to value conversation and connection over material things. He talked about building a life together based on love and partnership. After 6 months, he'd proposed at the same library where they'd met. It was simple and sweet. No expensive ring or elaborate production. Just him, down on one knee, asking if she'd spend her life with him. She'd said yes, hoping she'd finally found what she was looking for. The wedding was small. Just immediate family and close friends. Nora's business associates thought she was on an extended sabbatical. Trevor's family loved her. Everything seemed perfect. But cracks started showing within the first year of marriage. Trevor began making comments about money. About how they should be living better. About how his coworkers had nicer things. He pushed Nora to ask her consulting clients for more money. Suggested she wasn't ambitious enough. Nora had watched carefully, telling herself it was just normal financial stress. But the comments became more frequent. More pointed. He started comparing her to his coworkers' wives. Started talking about what he deserved from life. Then came the affairs. She'd discovered the first one 8 months ago. A woman from his office. She'd confronted him and he'd cried and apologized and promised it would never happen again. She'd forgiven him, wanting to believe in the man she'd married. But she'd also started paying closer attention. She'd hired a private investigator. Had her security team run background checks on the women Trevor was seeing. That's when she'd learned about Vanessa Hartley. Vanessa wasn't just any affair. She was Trevor's exit strategy. He'd been planning this for months, slowly moving his belongings out of the apartment in small batches so Naomi wouldn't notice. Setting up a new life with a woman he thought could give him the lifestyle he wanted. What Trevor didn't know was that Vanessa Hartley's boutique hotels were barely profitable. She'd inherited 3 properties from her parents and opened 2 more on risky loans. She looked wealthy on social media, but her actual financial situation was precarious at best. Nora knew this because Technova's financial analysis division had run a complete background check. Not because Nora was planning revenge, but because she needed to know who her husband was leaving her for. Who he thought was better than her. Now, standing in the apartment the day after Trevor left, Nora pulled out her laptop and opened the secure connection to her company network. Her assistant had already scheduled meetings. Her legal team was preparing divorce papers that would ensure Trevor got exactly what he deserved. Nothing. Their prenuptial agreement, which Trevor had barely glanced at before signing, was ironclad. He'd signed it as Trevor Morgan marrying Naomi Parker. He had no claim to any assets belonging to Nora Mitchell. And since Naomi Parker had never owned anything of significant value, there was almost nothing to divide. The apartment was a rental in Naomi Parker's name. The car was leased through one of Nora's shell companies. The furniture was cheap and replaceable. Trevor would walk away with exactly what he'd brought into the marriage. His clothes, his personal items, and his inflated sense of self-worth. Nora opened her email and began crafting messages to her board of directors. It was time to stop hiding. Time to reclaim her identity in her life. Time to show the world that Nora Mitchell hadn't gone anywhere. She'd just been testing the people around her. And Trevor had failed the test in the most spectacular way possible. Her phone rang. It was her business manager, Patricia. "I have news," Patricia said. "Our latest software platform just got acquired by 3 major corporations. Stock prices are up 18%. We're looking at a valuation increase of nearly $400 million. Nora smiled. "Schedule a press conference for next week. It's time for Nora Mitchell to make her return. Should I prepare a statement about your absence?" "No. We'll keep that private. Just announce that I'm resuming full public duties as CEO. Let people speculate about where I've been." "And your husband?" "My soon-to-be ex-husband," Nora corrected. "He's no longer my concern. He made his choice. Now he gets to live with the consequences." She hung up and looked around the apartment one more time. Tomorrow she'd start moving back into her real life. But tonight she'd allow herself to feel the weight of what she'd lost. Not Trevor. She'd accept he'd never been worth keeping. But the hope that someone could love her without wanting something from her. That dream was what hurt most. But Nora Mitchell hadn't built a billion-dollar company by dwelling on disappointment. She'd built it by learning from failure and moving forward stronger. And that's exactly what she intended to do. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nora's penthouse as she stood in her walk-in closet, running her hands over the designer suits she hadn't worn in 5 years. Everything was exactly as she'd left it, preserved in garment bags and temperature-controlled storage. Her housekeeper had maintained the space perfectly, just as Nora had requested. "It feels strange being back here," Nora said to her reflection in the full-length mirror. Her assistant, Patricia, stood in the doorway with a tablet. "Your 9 o'clock with Robert is confirmed. The car is waiting downstairs." And I've prepared briefing documents on everything that's happened in the past week. Nora selected a navy blue suit with clean lines and paired it with a cream silk blouse. Professional. Powerful. Unmistakably herself. As she dressed, she felt layers of Naomi Parker falling away. The modest freelance consultant had served her purpose. Now it was time to be Nora Mitchell again. The law offices of Chin and Associates occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown skyscraper. Robert Chin himself met Nora at the elevator, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. 5 years, he said, shaking her hand. I was beginning to think you'd never come back. I had to know, Nora replied simply. They walked to his private conference room, where a stack of documents waited on the polished mahogany table. Robert pulled out a chair for her, then sat across with a legal pad. Let's start with the divorce, he said. The prenuptial agreement you signed as Naomi Parker is solid. Trevor has no legal claim to any of your assets as Nora Mitchell because he doesn't know Naomi Parker and Nora Mitchell are the same person. Legally, they're separate entities. And my assets as Naomi Parker? Minimal. The apartment lease is in that name, paid from a trust fund that disperses small amounts monthly. The car is leased through a shell corporation. Your bank account under that name contains roughly $15,000. That's what's subject to division. Nora nodded. So he gets half of $15,000. Actually less. The prenup specifies that in cases of adultery, which we can prove through your private investigator's documentation, the offending party forfeits their claim to shared assets. He'll walk away with nothing but his personal belongings. Good. Nora felt no satisfaction in this, only a sense of completion. How quickly can we finalize? With his cooperation, 60 days. Without it, maybe 4 months. But there's something else you should know. Robert slid a folder across the table. Trevor has been posting on social media about his new relationship. These are screenshots my team collected. Nora opened the folder and felt her jaw tighten. There were photos of Trevor and Vanessa at expensive restaurants, on a yacht, at what looked like a resort. The captions were worse. Finally found someone who matches my ambition, and this is what it looks like when 2 successful people come together, and upgrading in every way. He's bragging, Nora said flatly. Publicly. Which means when the truth comes out, the fall will be very public too. Nora closed the folder. I'm not interested in public humiliation. I just want this ended cleanly. Understood. But Nora, people will find out who you are. The moment you resume public duties as CEO, someone will connect the dots. Trevor will discover that Naomi Parker was really Nora Mitchell. The media will have a field day. Let them. Nora stood and walked to the window looking out at the city. I'm done hiding. If Trevor finds out and feels embarrassed, that's his problem. I didn't deceive him to hurt him. I did it to protect myself. And I was right to do it. Robert made notes on his pad. I'll have the divorce papers drawn up by end of day. They'll be served to him at his new address within 48 hours. Thank you, Robert. There's one more thing. Robert's tone shifted, becoming more careful. Your return to public life. Have you thought about how to handle questions about your absence? Nora turned from the window. I took a sabbatical to focus on product development and company strategy. That's all anyone needs to know. My personal life remains personal. Fair enough. Patricia mentioned you want to schedule a press conference. Next week. I want to announce our latest acquisitions and introduce the new software platform. Make it about business, not about me. Over the next 3 days, Nora worked 18-hour days from her penthouse, reconnecting with her executive team and reviewing every major decision that had been made in her absence. She'd never truly been gone, of course. She'd participated in every board meeting via video from her carefully controlled home office setup. She'd reviewed every contract, approved every hire, guided every strategic decision. But she'd done it all as a voice on a screen, never in person. Now she needed to reassert her physical presence. On Thursday morning, she called her entire executive team to an in-person meeting at headquarters. When she walked into the boardroom, the reaction was immediate. People stood. A few gasped. Her CFO actually teared up. Ms. Mitchell, he said. It's good to see you in person. It's good to be seen, Nora replied with a slight smile. Now let's get to work. We have a company to run. The meeting lasted 4 hours. They discussed expansion plans, acquisition targets, personnel changes, and the upcoming product launch. Nora felt herself settling back into the role she'd built for herself, the one that fit like a second skin. Meanwhile, across the city, Trevor was experiencing a very different kind of transformation. The divorce papers arrived at Vanessa's penthouse on Friday afternoon, delivered by a process server who handed them to Trevor personally. He opened the envelope in Vanessa's living room, expecting standard legal documents about dividing their modest assets. What he found instead made his blood run cold. The papers listed Naomi Parker as the petitioning party. They detailed the grounds for divorce, adultery with evidence attached. They specified the prenuptial agreement that negated any claim he had to shared assets. And they required his response within 30 days. But it was the law firm's name that caught his attention. Chin and Associates, one of the most expensive legal firms in the city. The kind of firm that represented corporations and billionaires, not freelance consultants. What is it? Vanessa asked, looking up from her laptop. Divorce papers. From Naomi. That was fast. Vanessa didn't sound particularly interested. Well, at least you can move on cleanly. Trevor stared at the documents, his mind racing. How could Naomi afford Chin and Associates? Where did she get this kind of legal representation? And why did the paperwork look so professionally prepared, like it had been crafted by people who did this for a living at the highest levels? He pulled out his phone and searched for Robert Chen's firm. The website showed a list of clients. Fortune 500 companies, tech startups, entertainment moguls. The consultation fees alone started at $5,000. Something wasn't adding up. I need to make a call, Trevor said, stepping out onto Vanessa's balcony. He dialed his own lawyer, a guy he'd found through a discount legal service. I just got divorce papers. They're from Chin and Associates. His lawyer whistled. That's a heavy-hitting firm. Your wife must have taken out loans or something. Don't worry. They're probably just trying to intimidate you. We'll respond appropriately. But Trevor couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Something that would explain how his simple, modest wife could afford representation that cost more than their annual rent. He thought about calling Naomi, but the papers explicitly forbade direct contact. All communication had to go through lawyers. Inside the penthouse, Vanessa was having problems of her own. Her accountant had just emailed with bad news about the quarterly earnings for her hotels. Occupancy rates were down. Operating costs were up. And the loan payment on her newest property was coming due. Trevor, she called out. I need to talk to you about something. Trevor came back inside, still clutching the divorce papers. My accountant says we need to cut expenses, Vanessa said, not meeting his eyes. I'm going to have to sell one of the properties. Maybe two. What? I thought business was good? It is. This is just temporary. But it means I need to be more careful about spending for a while. She looked at him pointedly. Which means we should probably talk about your situation. You said you were between jobs. Trevor felt the ground shifting under his feet. I'm in talks with several companies. I should have something locked down soon. Right. Well, until then, maybe you should look into something temporary. To cover your own expenses. The conversation felt familiar in the worst way. It was the same kind of subtle pressure he'd put on Naomi. The same hints about money and worth and contribution. Now it was being turned back on him. I'll figure something out, Trevor said stiffly. That night, alone in Vanessa's guest room, she'd asked him to sleep separately until he found work. Trevor lay awake thinking about the choices he'd made. He'd left Naomi because he wanted more. Because Vanessa seemed to offer a better life. Because he thought he deserved luxury and success. But Vanessa's luxury was starting to look shaky. And the divorce papers from his supposedly poor ex-wife were making him question everything he thought he knew. He pulled out his phone and typed Chin and Associates clients into the search bar. The results showed exactly what he'd feared. This firm didn't take small cases. They represented people with serious money. Real money. Which meant either Naomi had gone into massive debt to spite him, or there was something about his ex-wife that he'd completely missed. Trevor had a sinking feeling it was the latter. Monday morning arrived with the force of a revelation for the business world. At 9 a.m. sharp, Technova Solutions released a press statement that sent ripples through the industry. CEO Nora Mitchell was resuming full public-facing duties after a 5-year period of remote leadership, and the company was announcing 3 major acquisitions. Nora stood in the executive conference room, watching news alerts populate her screen. Bloomberg, Forbes, TechCrunch. Everyone was covering the story. Her phone buzzed with interview requests, speaking invitations, and congratulatory messages from industry leaders. Stock price is up 22% in the first hour, Patricia announced from her position near the monitor displaying real-time market data. Social media is calling it the comeback of the decade. I never left, Nora said mildly, but she allowed herself a small smile. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. The company's main auditorium was already filling with reporters, camera crews and industry analysts. Nora had chosen her outfit carefully, a charcoal gray suit with sharp shoulders and a deep burgundy blouse. Professional, powerful, and unmistakably in charge. At 1:55 she walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Flash bulbs popped. Cameras focused. The room fell silent as she approached the podium. "Good afternoon," Nora began, her voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "5 years ago, I made a decision to step back from the public eye while maintaining full operational control of Technova Solutions. Today, I'm here to announce that Technova isn't just back, we're expanding in ways that will reshape the industry." She clicked to the first slide of her presentation. "Our first acquisition, Quantum Analytics, a data processing firm specializing in predictive modeling. This acquisition gives us access to algorithms that will improve our software efficiency by 40%. Click. Second slide. Our second acquisition, StreamCore Technologies, a cloud infrastructure company that will allow us to offer integrated solutions to our enterprise clients. Click. Third slide. And our third acquisition, Heritage Hotels Group. This one got a reaction. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Heritage Hotels was a struggling chain of mid-tier properties, the kind of acquisition that seemed completely outside Technova's usual focus. "I know what you're thinking," Nora continued smoothly. "What does a software company want with hotels?" The answer is data. Heritage Hotels processes millions of customer interactions annually. With their permission and proper privacy protocols, that data becomes invaluable for developing hospitality-focused software solutions. We're creating a new division, Technova Hospitality Solutions. She didn't mention that Heritage Hotels was also the primary referral partner for Vanessa Hartley's boutique properties. That Vanessa's business relied heavily on Heritage's booking systems and customer referrals. That this acquisition would effectively cut Vanessa off from her main source of new customers. Nora hadn't made the acquisition to hurt Vanessa. She'd made it because it was a smart business move that happened to have convenient side effects. The question started immediately. "Ms. Mitchell, why did you maintain such a low profile for 5 years?" "I wanted to focus on product development and strategic planning without the distraction of constant media attention. It allowed me to make better decisions for the company's long-term growth." "There are rumors about your personal life. Can you address those?" "My personal life is personal." Next question. "What's your response to competitors who say Technova has been stagnant?" "Our 42% revenue growth year over year and 3 major acquisitions announced today speak for themselves. If that's stagnant, I'll take it." The press conference lasted an hour. By the time Nora left the stage, her company's value had increased by $600 million. She was trending on 3 social media platforms. And somewhere across the city, Trevor was about to have a very bad day. Trevor sat in a coffee shop near Vanessa's penthouse, scrolling through his phone. He'd been job hunting for 2 weeks with no success. His savings were running low. Vanessa was becoming increasingly distant. And his attempt to maintain his social media presence as a successful, upwardly mobile professional was getting harder to sustain. Then he saw the headline, "Tech billionaire Nora Mitchell returns to public eye with major announcements." The name meant nothing to him at first. He almost scrolled past it, but something made him click the article. And there, embedded in the text, was a photo from the press conference. His brain refused to process what his eyes were seeing. The woman at the podium, surrounded by cameras and reporters, wearing an expensive suit and speaking with absolute authority, was his wife. No, not his wife. His ex-wife, Naomi. Except the article called her Nora Mitchell, CEO of Technova Solutions, Billionaire. One of the most influential people in the tech industry. Trevor's hands started shaking. He clicked on another article. Then another. Each one showed the same woman. Naomi's face. Naomi's voice. But they called her Nora. They talked about her company like it was common knowledge. They referenced her net worth like it was public information. $1.8 billion. Trevor dropped his phone. It clattered onto the coffee shop table, screen still displaying Nora's photo. Other customers looked over, but he barely noticed. His mind was reeling, trying to reconcile the woman he'd left with the woman on his screen. The modest apartment. The discount shopping. The freelance consulting work. All of it had been fake? No, not fake. A disguise. A test. And he'd failed. The full weight of what he'd done crashed over him. He'd left a billionaire for a woman whose hotels were barely profitable. He'd mocked his wife's simple lifestyle when she could have bought Vanessa's entire business 100 times over. He traded genuine wealth for the appearance of wealth. Trevor's phone buzzed with a text from his friend Marcus. "Dude, is that your ex-wife on the news?" The tech CEO. Another text from his cousin. "Did you know you were married to Nora Mitchell?" And another from his former co-worker. "Please tell me you didn't actually leave that woman for Vanessa Hartley." His phone exploded with messages. Calls. Notifications. Everyone he knew had apparently made the connection. Everyone was reaching out to ask the same question. How could he have been so stupid? Trevor tried to call Naomi. The number was disconnected. He tried her email. It bounced back. He even drove to the old apartment, but a different name was on the mailbox now. She'd erased every trace of Naomi Parker from existence. Back at Vanessa's penthouse, things were going from bad to worse. Vanessa was on the phone with her business manager, her face growing paler by the minute. "What do you mean Heritage is terminating our partnership?" she demanded. "We have a contract." She listened, her expression darkening. "Acquired? By who?" More listening. Then she hung up and turned to Trevor, who just walked in. "Technova Solutions just bought Heritage Hotels," she said. "They're restructuring all partnerships and referral programs. My properties are being cut from their system effective immediately." Trevor felt like he was going to be sick. "Technova is Nora Mitchell's company. I know who they are. This is a disaster. Heritage sends us 60% of our bookings. Without them," Vanessa stopped, seeing Trevor's expression. "What's wrong with you?" "Nora Mitchell," Trevor said slowly. "The CEO of Technova. That's Naomi. My ex-wife." Vanessa stared at him. "What are you talking about?" "My wife. The one I left. She's Nora Mitchell. She's been Nora Mitchell this whole time. She was just pretending to be someone else." "That's impossible. Nora Mitchell is a billionaire. Your wife worked as a consultant and lived in a tiny apartment." "It was a disguise." Trevor's voice rose. "She was testing me or hiding, or I don't know, but it was her. Look." He pulled up the press conference footage on his phone and showed it to Vanessa. Her eyes widened as she watched. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You left a billionaire. You left an actual billionaire. I didn't know. And now she's destroying my business." Vanessa stood up, pacing. "This can't be coincidence. She bought Heritage specifically to hurt me. This is revenge." Trevor wanted to argue, but he couldn't. It certainly looked like revenge. Strategic, calculated, perfectly executed revenge. "You need to talk to her," Vanessa said. "Explain. Apologize. Get her to call off whatever she's doing. She won't take my calls. She's blocked me everywhere. Then go to her office. Show up at her company. Do something." Vanessa's voice was desperate now. "My entire business is collapsing because you decided to leave your billionaire wife." Trevor stood there, feeling the full weight of his choices crushing down on him. He thought he was trading up. Thought he was finding someone better. Thought he deserved more than what Naomi offered. Turned out, Naomi had been offering him everything. He'd just been too blind to see it. That evening, Nora sat in her penthouse living room, a glass of wine in hand, watching the sunset paint the city gold and purple. Her phone sat on the coffee table, silenced. She knew Trevor was trying to contact her. Her security team had already intercepted 3 attempts by him to enter the Technova building. She felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just a quiet certainty that she'd made the right choice. Her sister Claire called. "I saw the press conference. You were amazing. Thank you. How does it feel? Being back in public?" "Like putting on a favorite coat I'd forgotten I owned," Nora said. "Comfortable. Right. And Trevor? Has apparently realized his mistake. My security team says he's been trying to get in touch. Are you going to talk to him?" "No." Nora's voice was firm. "There's nothing to say. He made his choice based on what he thought I was worth. Now he gets to live with that choice." "That's harsh." "That's fair." Nora took a sip of wine. "I didn't destroy his life, Claire. He did that himself. I'm just living mine." After they hung up, Nora opened her laptop and reviewed the numbers from her acquisitions. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Technova was stronger than ever. Her personal wealth had increased. Her company's influence was expanding into new markets. She built all of this, not as someone's wife, not as half of a partnership, as herself. And no one could take that away from her. 3 weeks after the press conference, the cracks in Trevor's new life had become chasms. He sat in a chain restaurant across from a hiring manager, trying to maintain the confident persona he'd cultivated for years. The interview wasn't going well. Your resume shows a gap in employment, the woman said, reviewing the papers in front of her. You left your previous position at MedTech Solutions 6 weeks ago. Can you explain the circumstances? Trevor shifted in his seat. The company underwent restructuring. Several positions were eliminated, including mine. This was partially true. MedTech had downsized and his position had been one of many cut. What he didn't mention was that his performance reviews had been declining for months, ever since he'd started spending more time with Vanessa and less time focusing on his actual job. I see. And what have you been doing during this gap? Exploring opportunities. Taking time to find the right fit rather than jumping into the wrong position. The hiring manager made a note. We'll be in touch if we decide to move forward. Trevor knew that meant no. It was the same response he'd gotten from 12 other interviews in the past 3 weeks. His industry connections, the ones he'd been so proud of, had mysteriously dried up. Calls went unreturned. LinkedIn messages were ignored. It was as if everyone suddenly knew something about him that made him untouchable. He suspected they did. His very public social media posts about upgrading and finding someone who matches my ambition had aged poorly now that everyone knew he'd left a billionaire. Screenshots of his posts were circulating with mocking commentary. Someone had even created a meme using his photo with the caption, "How to Fumble a Billionaire in 3 Easy Steps." His phone buzzed as he walked to his car. Vanessa. We need to talk, her text read. Come to the penthouse. Now. Trevor drove across town with a sense of dread settling in his stomach. Things between him and Vanessa had been tense since the revelation about Naomi. She blamed him for the Heritage Hotel situation. He couldn't exactly argue. Even though Nora's acquisition was a smart business move, the timing was suspicious. Vanessa's penthouse, which had seemed so impressive when he first saw it, now felt like a gilded cage. He let himself in with the key she'd given him, finding her in the living room with papers spread across the coffee table. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Actually, several problems. Trevor sat down slowly. What kind of problems? Financial problems. The loss of Heritage's referral system has cut our occupancy rates by 58% across all properties. My accountant says if this continues, I'll be in default on my loans within 4 months. There must be something you can do. Other partnerships. New marketing strategies. I'm trying. Vanessa snapped. But it takes time to build new referral networks. And money. Money I don't have because my reserves are depleted and the banks won't extend my credit line. She pulled out a document and slid it across the table. I need to sell 2 properties. The flagship downtown and the one in Harbor District. That's the only way to stay afloat. Trevor scanned the paperwork. But those are your most valuable properties. Exactly. Which is why I can get enough for them to cover my debts and maybe keep the other 3 running. Vanessa looked at him with an expression that was equal parts desperation and accusation. This is what your ex-wife has done to me. To us. She didn't do this to hurt you specifically, Trevor said, though he wasn't entirely convinced. She bought Heritage because it made business sense. Business sense? Trevor, she's a billionaire. She has 1,000 other acquisition opportunities. She chose Heritage because of me. Because of us. Trevor couldn't argue with that logic even if he wanted to. The timing was too perfect. The impact too precisely targeted. What do you want me to do? He asked. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. I need you to talk to her. Really talk to her. Explain that you made a mistake. Tell her about us, about how this is affecting innocent people. I've tried. She won't see me. Try harder. Vanessa stood up, pacing. Camp outside her office. Send letters. Hire a skywriter. I don't care. Just make her understand that this vendetta is destroying my life's work. It's not a vendetta, Trevor said quietly. It's just business. And even if it wasn't, why would she listen to me? I'm the one who left her. Who mocked her. Who chose you over her. The words hung in the air between them. Vanessa's expression shifted, becoming colder. Is that what this is about? She asked. Are you feeling guilty now? Having regrets? I'm just being realistic. Nora has no reason to help me, and even less reason to help you. Nora. Vanessa's voice dripped with disdain. You say her name like you still know her. Like you have some kind of claim to her attention. You don't. She's made that clear. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you seem awfully comfortable accepting that your ex-wife is destroying everything I've built and there's nothing you can do about it. Trevor stood up. What exactly do you want from me, Vanessa? You want me to grovel? Beg? Throw myself at Nora's feet and plead for mercy? That's not going to work. She's not interested in anything I have to say. Then you're useless to me. The words landed like a slap. Trevor stared at her. What? You heard me. I took you in because you said you had connections, ambition, potential. But you don't have any of those things, do you? You're just a middle-aged sales guy with no job and a billionaire ex-wife who won't give you the time of day. I've been looking for work. I've had interviews. And how many job offers? 0. Because everyone knows you're the idiot who left Nora Mitchell. You're a joke, Trevor. A cautionary tale people tell about greed and stupidity. Trevor felt something break inside him. This was the same kind of cold dismissal he'd given Naomi. The same measuring of worth based solely on money and status. Except now he was on the receiving end. So what are you saying? He asked. Vanessa crossed her arms. I'm saying that I need to focus on saving my business. And I can't do that while supporting someone who isn't contributing anything. You need to find your own place. Pay your own bills. I can't carry you anymore. You're kicking me out. I'm asking you to be independent. Like you claimed you wanted to be. Trevor looked around the penthouse, at the expensive furniture, the city views, the lifestyle he'd thought he wanted. All of it was hollow. Empty. Built on debt and appearance rather than substance. Just like his relationship with Vanessa. Fine, he said. I'll be out by tomorrow. Tonight would be better. Trevor grabbed his jacket and walked out without another word. He sat in his car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. His marriage was over. His relationship with Vanessa was over. His career was in shambles. His reputation was destroyed. And it was all his own fault. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through old photos. There was one from 2 years ago. Him and Naomi at a street festival eating ice cream and laughing. She looked genuinely happy. So did he. Back then he'd had everything. A wife who loved him. A stable job. A simple but comfortable life. It hadn't been glamorous, but it had been real. He'd thrown it all away for the illusion of something better. For a penthouse and expensive dinners and a woman who valued him only for what he could provide. Just like he'd valued Vanessa. The irony wasn't lost on him. Trevor started the car and drove to a budget motel on the edge of the city. It was all he could afford now. The room was small and smelled faintly of disinfectant, but it was his. Paid for with the last of his savings. He lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and thought about how far he'd fallen. From a comfortable apartment with a loving wife to a motel room, alone and unemployed. From believing he deserved better to realizing he'd already had the best. Meanwhile, across the city, Nora was having dinner with her executive team, celebrating the successful integration of their new acquisitions. The Heritage Hotel's transition was proceeding smoothly. The new hospitality software division was already generating interest from major hotel chains. Everything was falling into place exactly as she'd planned. Her phone buzzed with a message from her security team. Trevor Morgan attempted entry to building again. Turned away. He left a letter. Do you want us to forward it? Nora considered for a moment, then typed back. No. Dispose of it. Block any future attempts to contact me through company channels. She put her phone away and returned to the conversation at her table. Trevor was her past. This, her company, her team, her success, was her future. And she refused to let the past drag her backward. The Metropolitan Business Summit was the event of the season. Every major CEO, entrepreneur, and industry leader in the city attended. It was where deals were made, connections were formed, and reputations were built or destroyed. Trevor hadn't wanted to come. The $500 ticket price had nearly emptied his checking account. But his new career counselor had insisted that networking was essential for getting back into the job market. You need to be seen, she'd said. Remind people you exist as more than a meme. So here he was, wearing his best suit, which needed dry cleaning he couldn't afford, nursing a cheap drink at the hotel bar and trying to work up the courage to actually talk to people. Vanessa was here too. She'd arrived with a group of other small business owners, all of them trying to make connections that might save their struggling ventures. She'd walked past Trevor without acknowledging him. They hadn't spoken since the night she'd kicked him out 3 weeks ago. The main ballroom was filling up for the keynote speech. Trevor checked the program and felt his stomach drop. Keynote speaker, Nora Mitchell, CEO of Technova Solutions. Topic: Innovation through integrity, building sustainable business in the digital age. Of course she was the keynote speaker. Trevor should have checked before coming. Should have known that any major business event would feature the city's most successful tech CEO. He could leave. Should leave. But something kept him in his seat as the lights dimmed and the moderator took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to introduce tonight's keynote speaker. She's built one of the fastest growing technology companies in the nation, with a current valuation of $2.3 billion. She's been named to Forbes 30 Under 30 Fortune's Most Powerful Women, and just last month, Time's 100 Most Influential People. Please welcome Nora Mitchell. The applause was thunderous. Trevor watched as Naomi, no Nora, walked onto the stage in a stunning emerald suit that probably cost more than his monthly motel rent. She moved with confidence and grace, waving to the crowd, completely comfortable in the spotlight. This was who she really was. This was who she'd always been. And he'd never bothered to look closely enough to see it. Nora reached the podium and smiled at the audience. Thank you. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge something. Many of you are wondering where I've been for the past 5 years. Why I maintain such a low public profile. The answer is simple. I was learning. She clicked to her first slide. It showed a graph of Technova's growth over the past decade. When I founded Technova 10 years ago, I was 25 years old and terrified. I had a great idea but no experience running a company. I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I let others define my worth based on my bank account rather than my character. Trevor felt like she was speaking directly to him, even though she hadn't looked in his direction once. So 5 years ago, I decided to do an experiment. I stepped back from public-facing duties and operated my company remotely while living a completely different life. A simpler life. A life where people didn't know who I was or what I was worth. The audience was riveted. Trevor could see people leaning forward in their seats. What I learned during those 5 years changed everything. I learned that people reveal their true values when they think you have nothing to offer them. I learned that integrity can't be bought or performed, it's either present or it isn't. And I learned that the people who love you for who you are, not what you have, are the only relationships worth keeping. She clicked to the next slide, a quote that read, "Authenticity is the greatest luxury." During my time away from public life, I was in a relationship with someone who only knew me as an ordinary person. Someone who didn't know about my company or my wealth. And eventually, that person left me because they thought I wasn't successful enough. They found someone they believed was wealthier, more ambitious, more worthy of their time. The room was completely silent. Somewhere in the back, Trevor heard Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. She'd realized, just as he had, that Nora was talking about them. That experience taught me the most valuable lesson of all, that when someone shows you who they are, believe them. When someone values money over character, status over substance, appearance over authenticity, they're telling you exactly what matters to them. And that's okay. It's information. It's clarity. Nora's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. She wasn't angry or bitter. She was simply stating facts. I share this not to embarrass anyone, but because I believe there's a broader lesson here for all of us as business leaders. We live in a world that constantly tells us to optimize, to upgrade, to trade up. But sometimes the best thing we have is right in front of us. Sometimes loyalty and authenticity are worth more than any acquisition or partnership. She clicked to a slide showing Technova's latest innovations. Which brings me to my main topic tonight, building sustainable business through integrity. Trevor stopped listening. His heart was pounding so hard he thought people at nearby tables could hear it. His face felt hot. His hands were shaking. She just told their story to a room full of business leaders, reporters, and industry influencers. She hadn't named him directly, but anyone who'd been following the social media speculation would know exactly who she meant. He looked around and saw people glancing in his direction, whispering. A few were actually pointing. Somewhere a camera flashed. Trevor stood up and stumbled toward the exit, desperate to escape. He made it to the hallway before someone called his name. Trevor. Trevor Morgan. He turned to see a reporter with a camera crew rushing toward him. Mr. Morgan, is it true that you're the person Nora Mitchell was referring to in her speech? Did you leave her because you didn't know she was wealthy? No comment, Trevor managed. How does it feel to know you walked away from a billionaire? Do you have any regrets? I said no comment. More reporters were gathering now, drawn by the commotion. Questions came from every direction. Did you know she was Nora Mitchell? Is it true you left her for Vanessa Hartley? Do you want to reconcile? Trevor pushed through the crowd and ran for the parking garage. Behind him, he could hear the reporters still calling out questions, still eager for a statement. He sat in his car, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. Nora had exposed him. Not cruelly or vindicatively, but efficiently. She turned his betrayal into a teaching moment. A parable about authenticity. And worst of all, she'd been absolutely right. His phone started buzzing. Text messages, social media notifications, missed calls. Everyone wanted to know if it was him. If he was really the person who'd been too blind to see what he had. One text was from his mother, "Please tell me that wasn't about you." Another from his brother, "Dude, what did you do?" And one from a number he didn't recognize, "How does it feel to be the biggest idiot in the city?" Trevor turned his phone off and drove back to his motel. When he arrived, there were reporters in the parking lot. Someone had figured out where he was staying. He kept driving. That night, Trevor checked into a different motel on the opposite side of the city, paying cash and using a fake name. He lay in the dark, listening to sirens and traffic, thinking about the moment when everything had fallen apart. Not tonight. Not at the summit. But that day 4 months ago when he'd stood in their modest apartment and told Naomi she wasn't enough. When he'd looked at the simple life they'd built together and decided it had no value. He'd been measuring success by all the wrong metrics. Square footage and price tags and social media impressions. He'd never asked the questions that actually mattered. Am I happy? Is my partner trustworthy? Do we build each other up? Now he had all the answers. Too late to matter. Too late to change anything. Across the city, Nora returned to her penthouse after the summit. Her speech had been well received. 3 journalists had requested follow-up interviews. Her executive team was thrilled with the publicity. Claire called. "I watched the live stream. That was incredibly brave." "It needed to be said," Nora replied. "Not as revenge. As closure. Now everyone knows the truth and I can move forward without speculation." "How do you feel?" "Free," Nora said and meant it. "For 5 years I've been carrying this secret. Wondering if I did the right thing. Testing people. Tonight I took control of the narrative. I told my story on my terms. And Trevor? Is dealing with the consequences of his own choices. Just like everyone else." After they hung up, Nora stood at her window looking out at the glittering city. She felt lighter than she had in months. The speech hadn't been about hurting Trevor. It had been about reclaiming her own story. About turning a painful experience into something meaningful. Tomorrow she'd go back to running her company. She'd continue building her empire. She'd focus on the people and projects that actually mattered. And Trevor Morgan would fade into the background where he belonged. A lesson learned, a chapter closed, a story told. Nothing more. The morning after the summit, Trevor's face was everywhere. Not by name. Nora had been careful not to identify him directly, but by implication. Social media detectives had done their work overnight. Screenshots of his old posts about upgrading were paired with clips from Nora's speech. The hashtag Billionaire blunder was trending nationally. Trevor sat in his motel room, watching his entire life become a cautionary tale on the internet. Someone had created a TikTok explaining the whole story with dramatic reenactments. It had 3 million views. Another person made a YouTube video titled, "The Man Who Fumbled a Billionaire," a complete timeline. 800,000 views in 6 hours. His phone, which he turned back on against his better judgment, wouldn't stop buzzing. His email inbox had over 200 messages, most from reporters requesting interviews. A few from former friends expressing shock or offering hollow sympathy. Several from strangers calling him every name imaginable. One email stood out. It was from his former employer, MedTech Solutions. "Dear Mr. Morgan, it has come to our attention that you may have been involved in the situation referenced by Nora Mitchell during her keynote address at the Metropolitan Business Summit. While we cannot confirm specifics, we feel it necessary to clarify that your departure from MedTech Solutions was due to performance issues and budget cuts, not any other circumstances. We wish you well in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Human Resources Department." They were distancing themselves, making sure no one thought his failure reflected on their company. Trevor couldn't even blame them. His phone rang. "Vanessa." He answered out of morbid curiosity. "Have you seen what they're saying about me?" she demanded without greeting. "About you?" "Yes. People are calling me a gold digger. Saying I seduced you away from your wife for money I don't even have. My hotels are getting 1-star reviews from people who've never even stayed there. This is a nightmare." "Welcome to my world," Trevor said flatly. "Your world? You're the one who lied about your ex-wife being a billionaire. You're the one who made me look like an idiot." "I didn't know, Vanessa. How many times do I have to say it? You should have known. You were married to her for 3 years. How do you not notice your wife is secretly rich?" It was a fair question. One Trevor had been asking himself repeatedly. How had he missed it? Looking back, there had been signs. Naomi's confidence. Her business knowledge. The way she handled problems with calm efficiency. Her extensive vocabulary and sophisticated taste in books and art. But he'd been so focused on what she didn't have, the big house, the fancy car, the designer clothes, that he'd never looked at who she actually was. I need you to do something, Vanessa continued. I need you to make a statement. Tell people this wasn't about money. That we genuinely fell in love. Make them understand it was real. Was it? Trevor asked. Was it real, Vanessa? Because from where I'm sitting, you kicked me out the second I stopped being useful. Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, Trevor said. You're on your own with this one. Just like I am. He hung up before she could respond. The rest of the day passed in a blur of humiliation. His social media accounts were flooded with comments. His LinkedIn profile, which he'd carefully curated to present himself as a successful professional, was now a joke. Someone had edited his headline to read Relationship Strategist, specializing in trading down. By evening, mainstream news outlets were picking up the story. Not as front-page news but as human interest pieces. The real cost of materialism, read one headline. When the grass isn't greener, read another. Trevor was being used as an example. A warning. A punchline. His phone rang again. His mother this time. He considered not answering but knew she'd just keep calling. Trevor Anthony Morgan, she said, her voice tight with disappointment. Please tell me this isn't true. Mom? You left your wife for another woman? A wife you never even told us was successful? What were you thinking? I thought, Trevor stopped. What had he been thinking? I thought I deserved better. Better than a woman who loved you? Better than a stable marriage? Better than someone who stayed with you through everything? His mother's voice cracked. Your father and I raised you better than this. I know, Mom. I know. That poor girl. Naomi. I always liked her. She was kind and smart and she made you happy. Do you remember being happy, Trevor? Because I do. I remember you coming to Sunday dinner with the biggest smile on your face, talking about the book club where you met her, the conversations you had. Trevor did remember. Those had been good times. Simple times. Real times. Can you fix this? His mother asked. Can you apologize? She won't talk to me, Mom. She's made that clear. Then you need to accept the consequences of your choices and learn from them. That's all you can do. After they hung up, Trevor lay on the motel bed and stared at the water-stained ceiling. His mother was right. There was no fixing this. No going back. No redemption arc where he proved himself worthy and won Nora back. This was his reality now. The man who'd left a billionaire. The cautionary tale. The punchline. Across the city, Vanessa was experiencing her own version of hell. Her remaining 3 hotel properties were hemorrhaging money. The bad reviews had spread across every major travel site. Guests were canceling reservations. Her staff was quitting. And worst of all, her creditors were circling. She sat in her penthouse, which she'd have to sell soon if things didn't turn around, reading an email from her lawyer. 3 of her investors were filing suit, claiming she'd misrepresented the financial health of her business. They wanted their money back plus damages. Her phone rang. Her accountant. Vanessa, we need to talk about bankruptcy, he said without preamble. Chapter 11 would allow you to restructure, keep at least one property going while you... No. The word came out sharp. I'm not filing for bankruptcy. The alternative is losing everything. At least with Chapter 11 you have some control over the process. Vanessa closed her eyes. Bankruptcy. The word felt like admitting defeat. Admitting that she'd failed. That her whole carefully constructed image of success had been nothing but smoke and mirrors. I'll think about it, she said and hung up. She pulled up Nora Mitchell's Wikipedia page and stared at the photo. This woman had destroyed her. Not directly. Not overtly. But through one strategic business acquisition, Nora had pulled the thread that unraveled Vanessa's entire operation. Was it revenge? Or just business? Vanessa suspected it was both. And she had no way to fight back. No way to compete. She was a small fish who'd made the mistake of getting involved with a woman who turned out to be a shark. That night, Vanessa made a decision. She called her lawyer and authorized him to begin bankruptcy proceedings. Then she posted a statement on social media. To everyone asking about the recent news, yes, I was involved with Trevor Morgan. No, I didn't know his ex-wife was Nora Mitchell. I'm not a gold digger or a homewrecker. I'm a business owner trying to survive in a difficult market. I made mistakes. I own them. Now I'm focused on rebuilding and learning from this experience. I appreciate your understanding and privacy during this time. It was damage control. It wouldn't fix everything, but it might stop some of the bleeding. Trevor saw the post and felt a strange kinship with Vanessa. They'd both been exposed. Both been humbled. Both been forced to confront the consequences of their choices. He started typing a comment, then stopped. What was there to say? That he was sorry? That he understood? That they'd both been fools? Instead, he deleted his own social media accounts. All of them. If he was going to rebuild his life, he needed to do it away from the public eye. Away from the commentary and judgment. He needed to do what Nora had done. Step back, learn, and come back stronger. If he ever could. Meanwhile, Nora was having dinner with her foundation's advisory board, discussing expansion plans. The foundation had received a massive influx of donations following her speech. Apparently, her story had resonated with people. Hundreds of women had reached out to share their own experiences with partners who'd undervalued them. We're going to need more staff, the foundation director said. More resources. We can't keep up with the demand for our services. Then we'll expand, Nora said simply. This is exactly why I started this foundation. To help people who've been in similar situations. After the meeting, her executive assistant Patricia approached her. I have something to show you. Trevor's made the news again. Nora sighed. I don't want to hear about Trevor. This is different. He deleted all his social media. Completely disappeared from the internet. Nora considered this. Good for him. Maybe he's finally learning. Are you sure you don't want to reach out? Offer some kind of closure? Closure is something you give yourself, not something you get from other people, Nora said. Trevor and I are done. That chapter is closed. I'm focused on the future now. And she was. Her company was thriving. Her foundation was growing. Her personal life was peaceful and drama-free. For the first time in years, Nora felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Doing exactly what she was meant to do. And nothing, no ex-husband, no social media storm, no public scrutiny, could take that away from her. 6 months after the Metropolitan Business Summit, Nora stood in the community center she just opened in the city's south side. The space was bright and welcoming with computer stations, private consultation rooms, and a small cafe. This was the third physical location for her foundation, and she'd personally overseen every detail of its creation. This is incredible, said Patricia, walking through the main room. You've really built something special here. Nora smiled, watching a group of women attend a workshop on business plan development. This is what matters. Not the headlines or the stock prices. This. The foundation had grown exponentially since her speech. What had started as a small grant program now offered legal assistance, business mentoring, housing support, and career counseling for women leaving difficult situations. They'd helped over 500 women in 6 months, with success stories that made all the work worthwhile. One woman had left an abusive marriage and started a successful catering business. Another had escaped a controlling partner and was now enrolled in medical school. A third had walked away from a relationship where she'd been financially exploited and was now working as a financial advisor, helping others avoid the same pitfalls. Ms. Mitchell? A young woman approached nervously. I just wanted to thank you. Your foundation helped me leave my ex-husband. He told me I was worthless, that I'd never make it on my own. But your legal team helped me with the divorce, and your business program gave me the confidence to start my own graphic design company. I've been profitable for 3 months now. Nora took her hand. That's all you. We just provided resources. You did the hard work. After the woman left, Nora felt the familiar sense of purpose settle over her. This was why she'd built her company, why she'd worked so hard. Not just for personal success, but to create opportunities for others. Her phone buzzed. A reminder about dinner with James Carrington. She smiled. James had entered her life quietly, the way good things often did. She'd met him 4 months ago at a foundation event. He directed a nonprofit that provided housing assistance to families in crisis. They'd started talking about their work, discovered shared values, and gradually realized they enjoyed each other's company. Their first date had been coffee and a walk through the botanical gardens. No expensive restaurants or elaborate gestures. Just conversation and connection. James didn't know about Technova at first. Her foundation work was under her legal name, and she'd introduced herself simply as Nora. When he'd eventually found out, his reaction had been refreshingly understated. That explains the generous foundation budget, he'd said with a smile. But it doesn't change anything about who you are. That's when Nora knew he was different. They took things slowly. No rushing into commitment. No declarations of love after 3 dates. Just steady, consistent presence. James showed up when he said he would. He listened when she talked about her work. He had his own life, his own passions, his own purpose. He didn't need her to complete him or validate him or provide him with a lifestyle. He just liked her. That evening, they met at a small Italian restaurant that Nora loved for its authenticity and lack of pretension. James was already there, reading a book at their usual table near the window. "How was the center opening?" he asked as she sat down. "Perfect. The workshops are already filling up. We're going to need to add more session times." "That's amazing. You should be proud." They ordered food and talked about their days. James shared a story about a family his organization had just helped secure permanent housing. Nora told him about a new software feature her team was developing. The conversation flowed easily, naturally. "Can I ask you something?" James said over dessert. "About your ex-husband." Nora stiffened slightly but nodded. "What do you want to know? Do you ever regret it? The way it ended?" "No." Nora's answer was immediate. "I regret that I needed to hide who I was to feel safe. I regret that my trust was misplaced. But I don't regret the outcome. It taught me what I really needed to know." Which was? That I deserve someone who loves all of me. Not just the successful parts or the convenient parts. All of me. James smiled. "You do deserve that." They walked along the waterfront after dinner, talking about everything and nothing. James didn't try to hold her hand or rush physical intimacy. He seemed content to just be present. "You know what I appreciate about you?" Nora said as they watched boats drift across the water. "You're patient. You don't push. You let things develop naturally." "I learned a long time ago that good things don't need to be forced," James replied. "If something's meant to work, it will work at its own pace." Nora felt something settle in her chest. Something peaceful and right. This was what she'd been looking for all along. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts. Just genuine connection with someone who saw her clearly and chose to stay. Meanwhile, across the city, Trevor was experiencing his own quiet transformation. After deleting his social media and moving out of the motel, he'd found a small studio apartment in a working-class neighborhood. He'd taken a job at a call center. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills and didn't require him to network or maintain appearances. His days had become simple. Wake up, go to work, come home, sleep. No dating. No socializing. No attempts to reclaim his former life. He'd started therapy 6 weeks ago. His therapist, Dr. Patel, had helped him understand the patterns that led to his betrayal of Naomi. The need for external validation. The measuring of worth through material success. The inability to appreciate what he had until it was gone. "You're doing good work," Dr. Patel said during their weekly session. "You're taking responsibility. That's the first step toward real change." "Sometimes I think about reaching out to her," Trevor admitted. "Writing a letter or something. Just to apologize." "Why?" "Because I owe her that. Because she deserves to hear that I understand what I did wrong." "Is that for her benefit or yours?" Trevor considered this. "I guess, maybe both? Be honest, Trevor. Who does it serve more?" "Me," Trevor said quietly. "It would make me feel better. Like I'd done the right thing. But it wouldn't change anything for her." "Exactly. Sometimes the most respectful thing we can do is leave people alone. Let them move forward without us inserting ourselves back into their story." Trevor knew Dr. Patel was right. Nora had made it clear she wanted no contact. Respecting that boundary was the least he could do. He'd seen her in the news occasionally. Her company continued to grow. Her foundation was making real impact. She looked happy in the photos. Genuinely happy, not the performance of happiness he was used to seeing on social media. She'd moved on completely. Rebuilt without him. Thrived without him. That hurt in a strange way. Not because he wanted her back. He knew that ship had sailed and sunk, but because it confirmed what he'd feared all along. He'd been unnecessary. Their relationship hadn't been the partnership he'd thought it was. It had been her testing him and him failing. He was replaceable. Forgettable. A footnote in her story. But maybe that was okay. Maybe being a cautionary tale was his contribution to the world now. His story had clearly resonated with people. He still occasionally saw references to the guy who left a billionaire in articles about relationships and materialism. If his mistakes could help other people avoid the same fate, at least his failure had purpose. One evening, Trevor's mother called to tell him his younger sister was getting married. "Will you come to the wedding?" she asked. "I don't know, Mom. Won't it be awkward?" "Life is awkward, Trevor. That's not a reason to miss important moments. Your sister wants you there." Trevor agreed to think about it. After they hung up, he realized he was scared. Scared of seeing his extended family, of fielding questions about his life, of being pitted or judged. But he also realized that hiding wasn't the answer. He'd spent so much time trying to appear successful that he'd forgotten how to just be human. To show up imperfectly and honestly. Maybe it was time to start practicing that. The night before his sister's wedding, Trevor sat in his small apartment and wrote in the journal Dr. Patel had recommended. He wrote about his regrets. About the lessons he was learning. About the person he wanted to become. And for the first time in months he felt something like hope. Not hope that things would go back to how they were. Not hope that he'd somehow redeem himself in Nora's eyes. But hope that he could build a different kind of life. A smaller, quieter, more authentic life. The kind of life Naomi had been living all along. While Trevor wrote in his journal, Nora sat in her penthouse reviewing proposals for the foundation's next expansion. James was there too, reading on the couch while she worked. They existed in comfortable silence, each focused on their own tasks but enjoying the shared space. "You work too hard," James said eventually, looking up from his book. "Says the man who just told me about his 12-hour day yesterday." "Fair point." He smiled. "Want to take a break? Go for a walk." Nora saved her document and closed her laptop. "That sounds perfect." They walked through the quiet city streets, past closed shops and late-night cafes, talking about nothing important. James told her about a documentary he wanted to watch. Nora mentioned a tech conference she'd been invited to speak at. "Will you go?" James asked. "Probably. It's a good opportunity to talk about the work we're doing. We could make a weekend of it. I've always wanted to visit that city." Nora felt that peaceful rightness again. James wasn't asking to be included. He was simply offering to spend time together if she wanted company. No pressure. No expectations. "I'd like that," she said. They stopped at a bench overlooking the river. The water reflected the city lights, creating patterns of gold and silver on the dark surface. "Can I tell you something?" James said. "When I first met you, I thought you were impressive because of your foundation work. The resources you'd committed, the lives you were changing. But the more I've gotten to know you, the more I realize that's not what makes you special." No. What makes you special is that you're kind. You listen. You care about getting things right, not just getting them done. You're thoughtful." He paused. "You're you regardless of what you've built or achieved. And that's what I value most." Nora felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she'd been searching for 5 years ago when she created Naomi Parker. Someone who could see past the surface to the person underneath. Someone who valued her for her character, not her accomplishments. "Thank you," she said softly. James reached for her hand and she let him take it. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the river flow past, each lost in their own thoughts but connected in a way that felt real and lasting. This was what Nora had built from the ashes of her failed marriage. Not just a stronger company or a successful foundation, but a life that felt authentic. A life where she could be fully herself without hiding or performing. A life worth living. 1 year after Trevor left, Nora sat in her lawyer's office for the final divorce settlement meeting. Robert Chin slid a folder across the table containing the paperwork that would legally end her marriage. "It's done," he said simply. Trevor signed everything. No contest. No drama. Nora opened the folder and scanned the documents. After a year of legal proceedings, endless paperwork and careful division of assets that barely existed under Naomi Parker's name, it was finally over. "He didn't ask for anything beyond what was legally his?" she asked. "Nothing. He took his personal belongings and walked away. Honestly, I've rarely seen someone surrender so completely." Nora signed the papers with steady hands. She felt no triumph, no vindication. Just a quiet sense of closure. "There's one more thing," Robert said, pulling out another document. "Trevor sent this through his lawyer. It's not part of the settlement. Just a personal letter." Nora looked at the sealed envelope. Her first instinct was to refuse it, to let Robert dispose of it like all Trevor's other attempts at contact. But something made her take it. "Thank you, Robert. For everything." After leaving the law office, Nora sat in her car and stared at the envelope. She could throw it away unread. Burn it. Delete it from her life like she deleted everything else about Naomi Parker. But curiosity won out. She opened it. The letter was handwritten on simple notebook paper. "Nora, I know you probably won't read this. I know I have no right to ask for your time or attention. But my therapist says that sometimes we need to say things out loud even if no one hears them, so here I am, writing words you'll probably never see. I'm sorry. Not just for leaving but for all the ways I failed you during our marriage. For making you feel like you had to hide who you were. For measuring your worth in dollars instead of character. For being so blind that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you were right about everything. I was chasing an illusion. Vanessa and I didn't work out, not because of you or what happened with your company, but because our relationship was built on the same shallow foundation as my expectations for you. When things got hard, there was nothing real to hold on to. I've spent this year trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I was so focused on appearance and status. Why I couldn't appreciate a good, honest relationship when I had one. I'm still working on those answers. Probably will be for a long time. I'm not asking you to care about my journey. You've clearly moved on and built an incredible life without me. I see the news about your foundation. The work you're doing matters. You matter. I hope you found someone who sees that from the beginning, instead of learning it too late like I did. This isn't about me wanting you back. That ship has sailed and it should have. This is just me acknowledging that you deserve better than what I gave you. That our marriage failed because of my failures, not yours. That hiding your success was a test I should have passed but didn't. I hope you're happy. Really truly happy. Not because it would hurt less if you were suffering, though I'm ashamed to admit there was a time I might have felt that way, but because you deserve happiness. You deserved it all along. I won't contact you again. This is goodbye. Thank you for the years we had, even though I didn't appreciate them at the time. Thank you for teaching me, harshly but fairly, what really matters. I hope your life is everything you wanted it to be. Trevor. Nora read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and put it back in the envelope. She felt a complicated mixture of emotions. The letter showed growth, genuine reflection, real accountability. Trevor had clearly done work on himself. But it didn't change anything. She'd moved on. The life she'd built was full and meaningful. Trevor was a closed chapter, a lesson learned, a story told. She put the letter in her glove compartment, started her car, and drove to the foundation's main office where she had a meeting about expanding their legal services. The past was the past. The future was waiting. Across the city, Vanessa Hartley stood in what used to be her flagship hotel, now being converted into condominiums. The bankruptcy proceedings had taken 9 months. She'd lost everything, all 5 properties, her savings, her reputation in the hospitality industry. But strangely, she felt lighter than she had in years. The pressure of maintaining appearances, of pretending to be wealthier than she was, of building a brand on borrowed money and borrowed time, it had been exhausting. Losing everything had been painful, but it had also been freeing. She'd taken a job managing a small bed and breakfast in a coastal town 2 hours away. It was honest work, simple work, and it paid enough to cover her modest expenses. No investors to answer to. No loans hanging over her head. No social media image to maintain. She thought about Trevor sometimes. Wondered how he was doing. Felt a weird kinship with him as the other person who'd been publicly humiliated by their association with Nora Mitchell. But mostly she was focused on rebuilding. This time without the pretense. Without the desperate grasping for status and recognition. She'd learned the same lesson Trevor had, that you can't build a real life on appearances. That eventually the truth comes out. That authenticity, while less glamorous, is infinitely more sustainable. Her phone rang. Her sister. "How's the new job?" her sister asked. "Good. Really good, actually. It's quiet here. Peaceful. Are you happy?" Vanessa considered the question. "I'm getting there. For the first time in a long time, I'm not pretending. That feels like a start." After the call, Vanessa walked along the beach near her new workplace. The ocean stretched out endlessly and she felt small in a good way. Small and real and present. She'd spent so many years trying to be someone important, someone impressive, someone worthy of attention. Now she was just Vanessa. Working a normal job. Living in a small apartment. Starting over. And somehow that felt like enough. Meanwhile, Trevor attended his sister's wedding. It was a beautiful ceremony, simple and heartfelt. Trevor sat in the back row with his parents, watching his sister marry someone who clearly adored her. During the reception, his sister found him at the quiet table he'd chosen away from the main crowd. "I'm glad you came," she said, hugging him. "Me too. You look beautiful. He seems like a good guy." "He is." She sat down next to him. "Mom told me about what happened. With your ex-wife." Trevor winced. "Yeah. Not my finest moment. Mom says you're doing better though. That you're working on yourself." "Trying to. It's a process." His sister squeezed his hand. "You know what I remember about you and Naomi? You were lighter around her. happier. Not trying so hard to be something. Just you. Trevor felt his throat tighten. I didn't realize that at the time. Most people don't realize what they have until it's gone. But the fact that you realize it now means you can do better next time. I don't know if there will be a next time. I'm pretty much relationship poison at this point. You made a mistake. A public, humiliating mistake. But you're owning it. That counts for something. She stood up. Don't give up on yourself, okay? You're better than your worst decision. After the wedding, Trevor drove back to his apartment feeling something unexpected. Hope. Not for reconciliation with Nora. That door was permanently closed. But hope that he could build something real from here. That his mistakes didn't have to define him forever. That evening he updated his journal. I went to Sarah's wedding. Was good. Hard but good. I'm starting to understand that growth isn't about erasing what I did wrong. It's about using those mistakes to become someone different. Someone better. I'll never stop regretting how I treated Naomi. But I can honor what she taught me by actually changing. By being the person she thought I could be when she first met me. Not for her. Not to win her back. But because that's who I should have been all along. Across the city, Nora sat at her dining table with James, planning their upcoming trip to the tech conference. They'd been together for 8 months now, taking things slowly, building something solid. I was thinking, James said, looking up from the conference schedule. After the conference, we could extend the trip a few days. There's a national park nearby. We could go hiking. I'd love that. Nora smiled. I need to tell you something though. About my ex-husband. James set down the schedule, giving her his full attention. The divorce was finalized today. I got a letter from him. An apology. How do you feel about that? We're doing, Nora corrected. Your nonprofit has been essential to our housing partnerships. This is collaborative work. James smiled. I appreciate that. But tonight was about celebrating what you've built. Take the win. They sat on a bench overlooking the water. Nora leaned against James's shoulder, feeling content and peaceful. Can I ask you something? James said. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Honestly? Right here. Doing this work. Growing the foundation. Maybe expanding Technova into new markets. But mostly just living. Really living as myself without hiding or performing. And personally? Nora was quiet for a moment. I see myself with someone who values me. Someone who shows up consistently. Someone who doesn't need me to be anything other than who I am. James turned to look at her. For what it's worth, I see that for you too. And I'd like to be that someone if you'll have me. It wasn't a proposal. It was a declaration of intent. A commitment to continuing what they'd built together over the past year. I'd like that, Nora said softly. A lot. They kissed, gentle and unhurried, two people who'd found each other without pretense or performance. Just authenticity meeting authenticity. Across the city, Trevor sat in his small apartment, scrolling through news coverage of the foundation gala. He saw photos of Nora in a stunning blue gown, looking genuinely happy. He saw pictures of her with a man, tall, kind-faced, standing close but not possessive. Trevor felt a complex emotion wash over him. Not jealousy exactly. More like acceptance. This was who Nora really was. This was the life she'd always deserved. And she'd found it without him. His phone buzzed. Dr. Patel confirming their session for tomorrow. Trevor had been in therapy for over a year now, working through the patterns that had led to his betrayal. He'd learned about his need for external validation, his tendency to measure worth through status, his inability to appreciate what he had. He'd also learned to forgive himself. Not to excuse his behavior, but to accept it as part of his story and use it to grow. He'd recently started dating someone new. Amanda was a teacher he'd met at a community event. She was kind and funny and lived in an apartment even smaller than his. Their dates were simple, coffee, walks, movies. Nothing expensive or elaborate. And Trevor was happy. Not ecstatically, world on fire happy. But contentedly, genuinely happy. He'd learned to appreciate simplicity. To value character over status. To show up consistently instead of chasing the next big thing. He'd learned all the lessons Naomi had tried to teach him, just far too late for it to matter to her. But it mattered to him. And to Amanda. And to the life he was slowly, carefully building. Vanessa stood on the porch of the bed and breakfast, watching guests check in. The season had been good. She'd been promoted to general manager. She'd started saving money. She'd stopped posting on social media entirely. Her old life felt like someone else's dream. All that striving and performing and pretending. All that debt and stress in appearance management. Now she had work that fulfilled her without consuming her. She had enough money to live comfortably. She had genuine friendships with people who knew her story and liked her anyway. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Trevor was doing better too. Working a steady job. In therapy. Dating someone appropriate. Good for him, she thought. They'd both learned the same hard lesson, that you can't build a real life on borrowed money and false appearances. She went inside to help prepare dinner for the guests. This was her life now. Small and real and hers. And it was enough. Back at the waterfront, Nora and James walked hand in hand toward her penthouse. They talked about the gala, about their upcoming trip, about the new initiatives the foundation was launching. "I'm proud of you," James said as they reached her building. "For everything you've built. But mostly for being willing to be vulnerable again after what happened." Nora squeezed his hand. "I learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's honesty. And the right people appreciate honesty more than perfection." They rode the elevator to her penthouse. Inside, Nora poured them each a glass of wine, and they stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city they both loved. "You know what's strange?" Nora said. "I spent 5 years pretending to be someone else to find authentic love. And I failed. But then I stopped trying, stopped testing, and just lived as myself. And that's when I found you." "Maybe that's the lesson," James said. "That you can't find authenticity through deception. You can only find it by being authentic yourself and trusting that the right people will see it." Nora thought about Trevor's letter, still tucked in her glove compartment. About the journey she'd been on. About the person she'd become through all of it. "I'm grateful for how it all turned out," she said. "Not the pain. But the growth. The clarity. The understanding of what really matters. Which is being seen. Being valued. Being loved for who you actually are, not who someone needs you to be." James raised his glass. "To being seen." "To being seen," Nora echoed, and they clinked glasses. The future stretched out before them, full of possibility and promise. Nora's company would continue to grow. Her foundation would help thousands more women. Her relationship with James would deepen and evolve. But none of that mattered as much as this moment. Standing in her real home with her real name, beside someone who knew her completely and chose her anyway. This was the happy ending she'd been searching for. Not perfect. Not fairy tale. Just real and honest and hers. And after everything she'd been through, that was more than enough. It was everything.